So in the last Aqaba, as you would remember, Medinan or people from Yathrib who embraced Islam, they invited the Prophet ﷺ to Medina, and they pledged that they are going to protect him as they protect their own selves, own children. And they insisted that they should migrate. So this is a beginning of a new chapter, or it's a significant milestone in the history of humanity, and particularly in the history of Islam. So after these encounters with people from Yathrib, from Medina, Prophet ﷺ is eventually going to migrate, and that city is going to transform, Yathrib is going to transform to Medina. So that city that is affiliated with hardship, affiliated with some sort of wrongdoings, who was struggling with internal conflicts for centuries, for years at least, over 120 years, now it's going to transform into a civilized city, a model city for humanity that everybody looks for, when, particularly Muslims, when they try to understand the pillars of civilization. But today, inshallah, we'll talk about the migration is not overnight process, right? And when they invited Prophet ﷺ and Muslims, the following day, everybody did not migrate. So it's a process. If you think about the last encounter, the second pledge of Aqaba, and we say, that happened in Dhul Hijrah, by the time Prophet ﷺ is going to migrate, he himself, almost 3 months passed. So today we will focus in this 3 months where companions, they migrated from Mecca to Medina, to Yathrib at that time. But this migration is not also foreign to Muslims. Remember, they migrated to Abyssinia twice before this incident. And in reference to migration, Quran has several verses already revealed by the time we are talking about the migration of Muslims from Mecca to Medina. One verse in Surah Nisa says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ تَوَفَّاهُمُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ ظَالِمِي أَنفُسِهِمْ قَالُوا فِيمَا كُنْتُمْ قَالُوا كُنَّا مُسْتَضْعَفِينَ فِي الْأَرْضِ قَالُوا أَلَمْ تَكُنْ أَرْضُ اللَّهِ وَاسِعَةً فَتُهَاجِرُوا فِيهَا فَأُولَٰئِكَ مَأْوَاهُمْ جَهَنَّمُ وَسَاءَتْ مَصِيرًا. So this verse is kind of talking about some of the people, some of the believers who were under oppression, who were being squeezed. They are not able to practice their religion, and how they will be questioned in the hereafter. And when they were questioned, they will say, Fima kuntum. Angels will say, what was wrong with you? And they will say, Kunna mustadafina fil ard. We were being wronged, we were being oppressed in the land, so we were not able to do much. And the verse says, the angels will respond, Alam takun ardullahi wasi'a. The earth of Allah wasn't vast enough for you, فَتُهَاجِرُوا فِيهَا, so you migrate. So if you cannot practice your religion in one land because of oppression, because they are not tolerating you to live your religion according to what it is required, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly says the earth of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is vast, and you should be migrating to a place where you can comfortably practice your religion. So that was an indication early on for Muslims to migrate to Abyssinia, and this is a verse they are reciting in the prayer as part of the Quran that he said that has already been revealed. And around that time, Prophet ﷺ, he also had a vision, had a dream, and he shared this with his companions. And he said, I saw myself in a dream migrating a place surrounded by date palms. I thought initially this is either Yamama or Hajar, but later on I realized that this is Yathrib, Medina. So, and he encouraged his companions to migrate, and anything that Prophet ﷺ would do will have some sort of a divine guidance. So it will be either like those verses that we have just recited from the Quran, or a revelation or inspiration from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is not part of the Quran also. So, but he is being guided. And by this time, another verse we can perhaps remember in Surah Al-Ahqaf, which says, مَا كُنْتُ بِدْعًا مِنَ الرُّسُلِ. I'm not, just a first messenger that appeared out of a sudden. Many prophets, they have been sent before me. وَمَا أَدْرِي مَا يُفْعَلُ بِي وَلَا بِكُمْ. And I don't know what is going to happen to me or what is going to happen to you. إِنْ أَتَّبِعُ إِلَّا مَا يُوحَى إِلَيْهِ. And I follow only what has been revealed to me. So Prophet ﷺ is really is under divine guidance, and he is now encouraging his companions to migrate. This divine guidance in relation to migration is extremely important. That's why I'm starting with this. We will talk about the migration of the Prophet ﷺ later on, and I'll remind this again there because people can do whatever they want, but messengers, prophets, particularly in relation to leaving the land they were born to, leaving their own community, that is not permissible for them, because they have been immersed in that land, and they are tasked to deliver the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to those people, unless there is a divine guidance that they need to leave. So Quran is very particular in that sense. So Nuh alayhi salam, he received a revelation, then he made that supplication. Ibrahim alayhi salam, he received a revelation, and then he left his city. Lut alayhi salam, he received revelation, and then he left the city. Musa alayhi salam, he revealed the revelation, and then he left Egypt. So anything that they are going to do in this respect, it really needs a divine guidance. And if they don't wait for the revelation, even though they have fulfilled their task, and it is obvious that they have done their duty, and it is obvious that Allah is going to give permission if they rush to that obvious end, like in the story of Yunus alayhi salam, so they will themselves have some difficulties. Remember the story of Yunus alayhi salam? He left because it was obvious that he did his job, right? In Iraq, in Mosul. It was obvious that Allah is going to ask him to leave the city, but it wasn't the time yet. That's why when he left the city, he found himself in the belly of what? A whale. So we are talking about a time that all these verses, all these stories have already been revealed to the Prophet ﷺ. This is end of the Meccan period. These chapters, these passages we are remembering, they are all part of the Meccan chapters, Meccan verses, right? So it's important to understand this aspect before we talk about the migration. So there is a clear, and Prophet's dream itself is a part of a nubuwwah. It's part of prophethood. So if he had that vision that he is leaving his city, going to a city surrounded by date palms, it's part of nubuwwah. It's part of revelation. So then he is encouraging his people, his companions, to leave in secrecy. So there is a very good strategy there. Initially, Meccans are suspecting, there is something happening, but they cannot tell. They are suspecting that, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he is meeting with people from outside during those festival periods, in Aqaba. Remember in the last encounter, they also suspected that something big happened there, and they were questioning people who came from Yathrib. They questioned people like, Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul, who is a leader of the people of Yathrib at that time in that delegation. He said, nothing happened. If something would have happened, I would have known. So he denounced that. But they are sensing that people are leaving Mecca. Something is happening. So they are trying to make sense of it, but they are unable to tell what is really happening. So what happens is Muslims are going to leave, sometimes individuals, sometimes in groups of, 3, 4, 5 people, sometimes 10, sometimes 20 or more people. So there are lots of details that we clearly know how Muslims, they left Mecca, and their stories vary. And this is, I'm going to give some examples in that respect. But let's not forget, when we talk about migration, we sometimes think, okay, Muslims, they migrated, they are saved, a new chapter began in the history of Islam, and they relieved, right? That's mostly how people would perceive this. But migration in itself, for every single individual leaving their hometown, leaving their family, leaving their belongings, leaving their memories, and going to something that is unknown, to uncertainty, it's extremely difficult. It is extremely difficult. Great scholar, Said Ramadan al-Bouti, he says migration is an exchange of a hardship with another hardship. It's an exchange of hardship with another hardship. Yes, it is a relief that they are going to find some sort of a relief to practice their religion, but it doesn't mean it's an easy task. They left everything behind, literally. They left their memories behind. And this is the story of many people in our current day and age. They are living. They are going through this experience. But one thing would make that so valuable, if they have this aspect, that is, you doing this for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That changes everything, really. The entire experience will transform into an act of worship, not an ordinary worship. Hijrah, migration, is a very, very lofty, very, very high level of worship. Why I'm saying this? Because the Quran is a testament to this. Quran always talks about migration in the context of what? الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَجَاهَدُوا وَهَاجَرُوا. Or sometimes order will change, but these three main things will never change. They believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They will strive for the sake of Allah, which is jihad. And they will migrate for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is so valuable. It is very difficult. Every story is valuable. Every story has its own challenges, hardship in it. But what really transforms all this and puts them above all, وَالسَّابِقُونَ الْأَوَّلُونَ مِنَ الْمُهَاجِرِينَ وَالْأَنصَارِ. Quran talks about whom first? The first people among the believers are السَّابِقُونَ الْأَوَّلُونَ. Who are they? مِنَ الْمُهَاجِرِينَ. First is among the muhajirin, among those who migrated. They are first. Later on, years later, when there is some sort of a thing, unease with Ansar, when Prophet ﷺ made a decision, Prophet would make a very interesting remark, appreciating the position of Ansar in his eyes. He would say, if Allah would not choose me as a migrant, I would love to be among you. But I have been a migrant. He left his city, went to Medina, so he's a migrant. Otherwise, he would have preferred to be among the Ansar. And he said, I'm part of you, you're part of me. So he praised them. But there is something that you cannot exchange with anything. This migration leaving your own hometown purely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, leaving everything behind for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so valuable. That is, is mentioned after faith in the Quran in many occasions. So from here on, I'll talk about a few of the stories. As I said, we know a lot of stories, groups migrating from Mecca to Medina. But I believe these few examples will give us a good perspective to understand. The story of an individual, the story of a woman, the story of a group, the story of someone who is relocating for other purposes. So we will be able to understand, how valuable, how significant the stories of companions are. I'll begin the first. Sometimes they consider this companion and his family as first migrant family. It's a very interesting story of Abu Salama, Salama, and Salama. So Abu Salama is the father, the child is Salama, and the mother is Salama. They are among the first believers. In fact, they happened to migrate to Abyssinia twice as well. So, and they are from a very, very, very prestigious, very noble families, both Abu Salama and Salama. So they happened to migrate to initially Abyssinia, and when there was a false news, they happened to return. Their story is so significant and so long. A lot of sacrifice they made for the sake of Islam. One narration says, they even migrated before the second, meeting after Mus'ab was sent as a teacher. They also, since there is someone who is from Mecca and Prophet ﷺ sent him to Medina, either he migrated around that time or after the second Aqaba meeting. What happened is Abu Salama, because they are under extreme pressure, and once Meccans, they heard that, these people are, having some engagement with the people from Yathrib, from Medina, they got furious, really. Because Yathrib, if Muslims, they go there and they have a base there, they know that they cannot defeat. And it's a very big threat for Meccans for several reasons. Primary reason, their caravan road is going through Medina to Syria. So their financials are in big risk. So it's worldly material, in material sense, that's a very big problem for them. In terms of military aspect as well, we have mentioned already a few times, people of Yathrib, they are warriors because they have been fighting one another for over 120 years. They are fighters. So if they go and, have a base there and support from there, and they're going to fight against Meccans, they know that they will be weaker. And, these people will be superior. So they are really they got furious and they are looking for ways to prevent that. After a while, they noticed they are, going to towards Yathrib, towards Medina. They wanted to stop that. And this was a task, collectively and individually. Families also involved. You are responsible from your family to prevent members of your tribe or family going and joining them. So Abu Salama, Salama, and their son Salama, they set apart and they are going towards Yathrib. When they reached a place called Abtah, very close to Mecca, 3-4 kilometers from Mecca, their family intercepted both Salama's and Salama's family. So they said, particularly Salama's family said, we understand you going, but we don't allow our daughter to go with you. And they stopped them. Ultimately they decided to take their child. Abu Salama's family, they took the son. Salama's family, they took the woman. And Abu Salama is now in a position, in a dilemma, what he is going to do. This is a very familiar story with many migrants, when they are persecuted and chased by tyrants, oppressors. So everything is test. Going back is test. Moving forward is test. Leaving family there, it's test. Everything is a test. It's a family tragedy, really. So he thought, even if he comes back, they are going to torture them. The family is, fall apart. So he decided to move on without his wife and his son. He left them. He went to Medina, to Yathrib. Umm Salama, now they separated the son from the mother as well. So Salama is with her own family. Their son Salama is with Abu Salama's family. This lady is going to go to Abtah every single day for 1 year almost, mourning there, crying and reciting poetry for this separation from his own family, from his wife, his husband, and son. Almost after a year, someone from her family will say, "Why you are torturing this poor woman? Let her go and join his own husband." And after 1 year almost, they will let her go, and she is going to go alone with his own son in a desert. Imagine at that time, to a point called Tan'im. At that point, he is going to encounter with Uthman ibn Talha. He will notice that, and when he questions, he will say, "I'm going to, unite with my husband family." And he says he swears that he is not going to let her go alone. He will take her from there to Quba. And because Abu Salama, he resided in Quba with the family, and he said, "Your husband is in this family," and he left after that and returned back to Tan'im. So it's a very tragic story, but very familiar story as well. So many people, migrants, will have similar experiences. This noble woman later on will become the wife, the blessed wife of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Umm Salama. When Abu Salama martyred in the Battle of Badr, someone who has few children by that time, who experienced a lot of hardship, from day one of her belief, from migration to migration, separation to separation, very tragic story. Prophet ﷺ will protect her from there on. So another story is the story of Suhaib ibn Sinan. Suhaib ibn Sinan is a very interesting profile, companion. He is originally from Mosul, from Iraq. And when Romans, they invaded there, he was sold as a servant. And ultimately from there, he was sold as a servant to someone called Abdullah ibn Jud'an. I don't know if you remember this name. Abdullah ibn Jud'an is the owner of the house when Prophet ﷺ, he had the allegiance of virtues, hilful fudul, when he was around the age of 20. So this person is the owner. Very noble character, to protect the oppressed. He opened up his house. People was, Prophet's uncle, Prophet ﷺ himself, Abu Bakr, they were gathering in this person's house to protect people who are oppressed in Mecca. So he purchased this person from Romans, in one of his trade travels, and eventually he enslaved him, freed this person, Suhaib ibn Sinan. But because of his noble character, he was still living with him, Suhaib ibn Sinan. So he earned some money as well. He started to do some business. And when Islam emerged, when Prophet ﷺ, his call began, with Ammar ibn Yasir, he embraced Islam in Darul Arqam in the first year of prophethood, one of the first Muslims. So after a lot of hardship he also experienced, when people were leaving Mecca, he also left, and some people from Quraysh, they spotted him and stopped him. Now they're having a bit of an engagement. This person is a very talented archer as well. He's a very good fighter, archer, and he has some, equipments. And he said, you know me, I'm a very good archer, and you can see these arrows and everything I hold. I will fight with you, and I will fight to the last minute and to the last arrow I have. Even if that finishes, I have my sword. I'll still continue fighting you. He was threatening them that, yes, you can take me back to Mecca, but it will cost you a lot. And he started to negotiate. So as I said, after he became free, he made some money. And he said, if I give you the wealth, they said, whatever you have earned all this in Mecca. You came as a poor slave person. Now you're going to Yathrib with that money you earned among us. We will not allow you. And he started to negotiate and said, these people have a mindset of, materialistic mindset versus, religious, spiritual mindset. You can see that quite distinctly here. He said, if I tell you, where my belongings are you going to leave me? They assume he is joking, right? And nobody will do that because they only think about material. And they said, yeah, of course, if you tell us where it is, we'll let you go. And he said, my belongings are here in this place. So they left him and they went back, and Suhaib continued. And Prophet ﷺ, even before he reached, met with the Prophet ﷺ, his news, the story of Suhaib, reached to the Prophet ﷺ, and Prophet made a remark about Suhaib, Rabiḥa Suhaib. He made a great prophet. He made he kind of, what a wonderful merchant Suhaib is, he said. He kind of appreciated his efforts. And another story, how we can skip this one, the story of Umar radiallahu anh, his migration. Everybody is migrating secretly, as and they are facing a lot of difficulties. Umar radiallahu anh, he decided to migrate, and he made a decision with someone called Ayyash ibn Rabiʿah. I'll talk about this person a bit more. Hisham ibn As, and they made a decision. There is a place called Tanadub, almost 10 miles away from Mecca, Kaaba. They said, we are going to meet in this spot the following day, and whoever can make it, we will continue with them. If you cannot make it, we will not wait for you. Because it's obvious, if you cannot come there, it means you are intercepted. People probably they figured it out that you're also migrating, and they stopped you. And before the following day, before marching towards Tanadub, Umar radiallahu anh, he went to Kaaba, armed fully. He prayed, he circumambulated around the Kaaba, 7 times. And he prayed in Maqam Ibrahim, in the station of Ibrahim, alayhi salam. And he came close, and everybody seeing Umar armed, they are curious, it's not an ordinary person. Something is going to happen. It's obvious from his demeanor, from his behaviors. They were curious, and he came closer to the people, the Meccans, and he said, Shahat wujuh, may your faces be darkened. And he challenged them, and he said, whoever wants her mother to weep, her children to be orphaned, and his wife to be a widow, let them challenge me behind this valley. I am going to Yathrib. I am migrating. He openly declared that he's going, and he said, whoever wants to stop me, come and meet me behind this valley. It's very different to almost everybody else, including the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? Very different way of migration. I'll talk about that difference probably in next talk. Make some comparison with his migration. Why Prophet ﷺ is not, doing something similar, openly declaring that he's going, whereas Umar is doing something like this. So remember, what was the decision? They are going to meet in Tanadub with 3 people. So when Omar publicly declared that he's going, he's migrating, almost 20 or so more people joined them because he said, very safe person to go with. Who is going to approach them? So some weak people, they also joined them. But in that spot, only Ayyash ibn Rabiʿah, there was, remember, another person, Hisham ibn al-As, they planned to come as well. But this person was, his tribe, they stopped him. They chained him, actually. They started to torture him. Ayyash ibn Rabiʿah was able to go. Ayyash ibn Rabi'ah's story is very interesting as well. This person is a brother of Abu Jahl. Their mother is same. So Ayyash's mother, Abu Jahl's mother is same. Their father is different. The mother is same person. So they are brothers. So Ayyash is with whom? With Umar radiallahu anhu. They started to go towards Medina. Ultimately, they reached Quba. Quba means Medina. Almost there, it means. Very close, like a thing, the outskirts of Medina. When they were resting there, it's a week journey from Mecca to Quba. You have to travel 7-8 days to be able to reach there. So, it's a long journey, and when you are in Quba, it means you are in Medina. So they started to rest there, and they spotted 2 people coming, and they were a bit happy to see perhaps 2 more people are migrating. They are saved from the tortures, difficulties. But when they come closer, they notice that these 2 people are indeed Abu Jahl and Abu Jahl's another brother, like Ayyash's another brother, Harith ibn Hisham. When they came closer, they started to suspect, Abu Jahl migration doesn't make sense. A pharaoh of this nation, something is happening, but they cannot make sense of what's really happening. When he came closer, Abu Jahl is a very smart person. He said to Ayyash, and Ayyash is a very soft-hearted, almost total opposite of Abu Jahl, if you like. He said to Ayyash, your mother, she made an oath, and she said that until Ayyash returns, I'm going to sit under the sun. I'm not going to comb my hairs, not going to take bath. So I'll just wait for him. Either he comes or I'll wait for him. She made an oath that she's not going to move. So this is a very soft thing of Ayyash. He is really teasing his emotions. He is manipulating his emotions, in fact. So he knows that Ayyash is going to change his mind. Umar radiallahu anhu and Ayyash ibn Rabi'ah, they are very close friends. So Umar said, this is Abu Jahl, right? You can't trust him. So you can't trust him, As for your mother, Mecca's heat, when she stays there for a few hours, she can't tolerate any further. She will be able to go in. She, because of it, she will go in, she will find the, shadow, and she's going to look after her. Don't worry about your mother. You can't trust this person, he said. And Ayyash was undecided. She said, okay. And he also left some belongings. Migration, as we said, is not easy thing. He said, it might be better I go, resolve those financial issues, and also make the heart of my mom, and come back. And Omar said, if you're concerned about your belongings, I have money. I'll give half of it to you. Half of my wealth is yours. And Ayyash insisted that he's going. Abu Jahl is, manipulating his his emotions, as we said, and he decided to go, and Omar noticed that he is not able to stop him. He said, at least take my camel. This is a very good ride. If you suspect anything, jump on it and run away. And they left with Abu Jahl, Ayyash, and their brother Hisham. And they came to a point. Abu Jahl said, "Yeah, Ayyash, my brother, look at my camel, very tired. It's barely moving. Can I jump on your camel?" This is called radif. Camels, they generally accommodate two people very easily. Someone sits at the back. It's called radif. So he said, "Can I jump on your back? My camel is not moving." And it's a plot. And then once he allowed him, they just tied him, took him back to Mecca. When they were entering Mecca, Abu Jahl, very smart, very dedicated person, he said to people, "O Meccans, look how we are treating our fools. This is what is expected from every one of you." So he's bringing him back all the way from Quba and announcing this publicly, so nobody should allow their family members to go out. So they should chain them, and they are going to torture Ayyash ibn Rabi'ah to an extent that for a temporary period he apostatized. He denounced his faith. Prophet ﷺ made supplication, and Umar radiallahu anhu was still, as we said, he is a very good friend, a very genuine friend. He was dictating letters to Ayyash, ultimately, saving his faith. He renewed his faith, and later on he found a way, and he went to Medina years later. So that's a very interesting story as well, the story of Umar and the story of Ayyash. And one final thing to mention, and I'll wrap up after this, is there's another person that we don't know this person's name in our sources. Our sources doesn't give name. They name a woman, though, in Medina, that this person is going to Medina. So this person, migration is what? You're leaving your city, Mecca, going to where? Medina, right? This is the primary thing. From there on, wherever Prophet is, up until the conquest of Mecca, people will migrate. And this will, literally, migration is this one. Wherever, going to Medina, where Prophet ﷺ resides. So this person is going to Medina as well. But this person goes to Medina to marry a person named Ummu Qais. A woman named the mother of Qais. That's what we know about it. So as I said, the name of this person is unknown in our sources. No matter what you do, how much you dig in the sources, you are not able to tell who this person, this companion is. So he also went, but his purpose is to marry this woman. And when this incident was presented to Prophet ﷺ, he made a very important remark. He said this hadith that we all know. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَى فَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ وَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ لِدُنْيَا يُصِيبُهَا أَوْ إِمْرَأَةٍ يَنْكِحُهَا فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى مَا هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِ. This is a well-known hadith. In fact, the first hadith of the collection of Imam Bukhari's Sahih. So Sahih Bukhari begins with this hadith. Although the chapter title is Kitabu Bad'il Wahi, the beginning of revelation. So he planned to start his book, his collection, with the story of revelation, how Prophet ﷺ received the first revelation. The following hadith after this is that story. How Prophet received the first revelation in the cave, Hijrah. But he puts this hadith in front of everything else to give us a good lesson as well. So, and this happened around the time we are talking about, around the time of Hijrah. Someone is going from Mecca to Medina to marry a woman. It is not a sin that you go from one place to another to marry. It is not a sin that you leave your country and go to another place to work, right? This is ordinary things, but it's not Hijrah in the sense that we are talking about. So Prophet ﷺ made it clear. So, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, all actions are judged by intention. If your intention is to Allah and His Messenger, you will be rewarded accordingly. If your intention is to get a portion of dunya or marry a woman, so you will get the reward, or you will get that outcome as a result. So Prophet ﷺ is making something very clear here. So for something like Hijrah, it should be purely made for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, you are doing the exact same thing, right? You are relocating your place. From one place to another you are going, but if it is for worldly gains, you get the worldly reward. If your goal and intention is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger, the same act becomes one of the most valued acts in Islam, which is Hijrah, which is migration. So I think this is also something important to keep in mind. On top of everybody's story, you see this is a story as well. This is a sacrifice as well. This is a relocation as well from the exact same place, exact same distance. Pretty much everything is same. The only difference is the intention. So one person becomes migrant, real muhajir in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The other person is a still believer, but we don't even know that person's name. It's with good reasons. So companions, they don't gossip, no backbiting. So they don't even give the name of this person because something bad is involved. Like you will think badly about that companion. So they prevented that. They kind of censored this person's name. So it's not known, but it's very important lesson regardless to keep in mind. So I'll wrap up. From here on, inshallah, we'll talk about the migration of the Prophet ﷺ. I just have given some examples from some women, from some, very noble people, some weak people, how they migrated. So as I said, we cannot cover all individual stories. That will take forever. But let's wrap up and take some lessons. So from this migration of companions, what we are really learning and how we can relate to these stories. First and foremost, migration is a very noble act of worship. So it is, in a way, a testament of a deep faith. And it is done with the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we are seeing clearly that, particularly in relation to prophetic stories, story of the Prophet and his companions, it is with divine discernment, it is with divine guidance. That's why that becomes a term, a religious term in our terminology, Islamic terminology. When we say Hijrah, we don't understand it, I'm going from Melbourne to Sydney for work purposes. When we say Hijrah, we don't take it, we're leaving everything behind to find a place that we will live better. So when we say Hijrah, we're talking about a sacrifice purely made for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why in another hadith in Bukhari and Muslim, Prophet ﷺ, he talks about this spiritual aspect of migration and says, Al-muhajiru man hajara ma na'a Allahu an. The real muhajir is not who distance himself from one place to another. Is the one who distance himself from this wrongdoing, from sinning, from sins. So even if you are in the same place, or if you are not changing your position, your room, not to commit a sin, you are considered muhajir, a migrant. So it's a very different terminology that we should understand. It's an Islamic terminology, and it's a destiny for believers. Remember the first migration when Prophet ﷺ came back to Khadija, and when they went to Waraka, what did Waraka say? He said few things. One, he said, this is going to disturb Meccans. They will not, and he said, this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's Namus Akbar. It's a revelation. It's angel. If what you said is correct, this will disturb your people and they will force you to leave your city. So it's a divine decree. It's a destiny of righteous people. So they happen to leave their own hometown. Many prophets, they have gone through the same precedent, same example. So second important lesson is every migration of companions or migration in this part, this episode in the Prophet's life, we shouldn't take it lightly, and we shouldn't read it collectively. Everybody's story, everybody's sacrifice, it counts. It is so significant. Everybody's experience is different. And everybody's memories, everybody's, the hardship is immense, really. Think about what happened to Ayyash ibn Rabiʿah. Think about the family tragedy happening to Abu Salama, Salama. Think about the wealth he sacrificed, Suhaib, his story. Think about Umar radiallahu anh. Yes, he is powerful, but he is leaving everything behind regardless. So everybody's story is really unique. And we shouldn't just think that, okay, Allah gave them opportunity, opened up a new land through these people in Aqaba, and they left and they relieved. No, it's a hardship. It's an exchange of hardship with another hardship at the end of the day. When you think about the story of Omar, Ayyash, and Abu Jahl, it's a very interesting story as well. In relation to Omar radiallahu anh, you can see his courage, his personality coming out in that. So he is so confident in his religion. So he is actually humiliating the disbelievers in a sense, because that's what he can do at the end of the day. He's still having some sort of a challenge. He's making some sort of a sacrifice there to show Islam's superiority, and he's very comfortable with that. And on the other hand, he is very loyal friend. He doesn't want to give up on Ayyash ibn Rabiʿah from the moment Abu Jahl comes up until the last time he is going to bring him back to Medina as a believer. Once he denounced his faith, he didn't say, that's it, I can't do much. He still follows him. He still does something for his friend. This is true friendship. This is true companionship. He's caring for that person. One person's faith is so significant. You cannot take it lightly. He knows that. So this is his friend as well, who believed already, who sacrificed, who happened to go to Abyssinia twice, Ayyash ibn Rabiʿah. So his loyal friendship, his loyalty to Ayyash is so remarkable that we should learn from that as well. On the other hand, Abu Jahl, look at his commitment, his sacrifice in wrongdoing, for wrong purposes. What he's doing, right? He's going 500 kilometers almost in a desert in those conditions to bring one person back, so committed to his ideals. It is wrong, but he has ikhlas in it. He is so sincere in his wrong ideals. That's why Prophet ﷺ said, "Oh Allah, support this cause with one of two Umars." One was Omar ibn Al-Khattab, one was Amr ibn Hisham, which is Abu Jahl. So that also is so significant. It means the potentials he has is so great, but he is using for a wrong purpose, which causes his destruction. What I should learn from that? The potentials I have, the commitment he is showing, I should show more commitment for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the right things. So he is so committed in wrong ideals. So there are people like that. So to defeat them, you need to have a commitment of Umar ibn Al-Khattab to, fight against these people. They are committed. They believe that, they believe in what they are doing. And they are so committed. And that should tell us something as well. Another important lesson is, migration is going to unknown. To challenge uncertainty, those unknown things, you have to have deep faith in unseen. Right? If you have deep faith in unseen, in ghaib, in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will be able to challenge all those uncertainties. That is, you're going to something that is not known. How are you going to challenge that? You need to submit to someone who is in charge of everything. You need to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His divine will, His orders, wholeheartedly. And that's why Prophet ﷺ emphasized on the centrality of what? Intention and doing things for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I'll conclude with that. Let's purify our intentions. Let's make sure that we are doing things for the sake of Allah. Those uncertainties, those unknown matters will be dispelled. And the path to paradise will become so easy for us. If we have deep commitment to our faith, deep commitment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His will, and have, do what we are doing for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala purely. Ikhlas and niyyah, intention and sincerity. They are, so deep, so interconnected. So we need to purify our intentions in whatever we do and have a commitment to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is ikhlas. That is the, niyyah is the seed, essence of Islam. The essence of niyyah is ikhlas, sincerity. So we need to purify this heart and have that pure commitment to do everything for Allah's sake. From ordinary things to great things like migration. And things will ease for us, inshallah ta'ala.